introduction to influencer relationship management. In previous tutorials, we talked about finding content creators in your niche, and in this video, we'll talk about the next step, which is once you've built your database of 20, 30, or maybe even 100 influencers and need to manage the professional relationship between your brand and your talent. Managing influencer relationships requires time, and at this point, some brands consider hiring a separate influencer marketing manager. However, the solution is actually much more simple and doesn't require expanding your team or taking on expensive overhead costs. An influencer relationship management tool is just like a customer relationship management software, but tailored especially to influencers. You wouldn't catch a sales team without a CRM, so why would you expect a marketing team to work without an IRM? An IRM is the key to long-term, mutually beneficial relationships that produce authentic and relatable content, which is, after all, what makes influencer marketing such a valuable strategy. Now, let's check it out by exploring the Influencity IRM, which is located right here in the Influencers tab. I'm going to start by going to Overview, which gives you all of your data at a glance. So here I can see that I have 95 profiles, 59 influencers, 10 influencer profiles, 12 YouTube profiles, etc. Now at this point you might be wondering, why is the number of profiles different from influencers? Aren't they the same thing? Actually, in Influencity, we differentiate between profiles, which are social media accounts with their own KPIs like follower quality, number of followers, and influencers, who are the content creators who we actually talk with to sign a contract and we ultimately pay them to work with our brand. So the advantage of this is you can create one influencer page and then associate the different social media profiles that they use. For example, if one influencer has an Instagram page, a YouTube channel, and a TikTok channel, you can associate these three to their page and have all of their information in one easy to use place. Let's check it out. So I'm going to open this profile that I just saved from Discover. And as you can see here in this pop-up, I have lots of great data such as engagement rate, the profile's evolution over time, and even information on the audience. However, to really get the most out of this data, I am going to associate this profile to an influencer. And there are multiple ways to do this in Influencity. However, since I have this window open, I'm going to go to this plus sign and go to Add to Influencers. Now these are all the influencers that exist in my database. However, since this is a new contact, I'm going to go to Add New Influencer. And then it's going to ask me to fill in some data. Now, the influencer alias is really important because this is basically what you would call this influencer in day-to-day conversations. So I would recommend maybe going to their Instagram page and looking up their full name so you know what they want to be called. For example, I know that this girl is called Natalie. It's important to be careful when saving their names and not put, for example, cool photography influencer, because later you can use this data in your communications with influencers, so you want to have it right. Now you'll see it asks for a lot of other information such as phone number, email. If you don't have that, that's fine. Let me just save this and I'll give you a look. I'll give you some insight into what the page looks like. So now this influencer is here under last influencers added, and I'm going to open her page. Now, as you can see, this is a totally different story. You have a lot more information. There's a lot to sort through, so let's start from the top. So in this tab, we have social networks. In this case, since I was looking at her Instagram profile, these are all her Instagram KPIs. If I were to later associate, for example, her YouTube profile, this would appear here, and you can flick through the different profiles to see the different KPIs. Now, notes are cool because this is a way to share information with other users on your team. For example, if she worked with a competitor in 2017, I can save this as a note, and other brand users who come to her profile can see that I left this note on October 20th. Emails is also really cool, and this is where you'll see a log of all the emails that were sent to your influencer, so you kind of know what was sent and when, and you can keep track of this data. Now, other options are you can add this influencer to a list, add them to a program and to a campaign, and then also you can add price data and create your own price log. So I can see here that on the 20th of October, I recorded that a video would cost 2,000 euros with this influencer. Let's say a year goes by and I want to revisit this. I can add a new line of prices to my log, and I also have this information which will really help me with negotiating because I know what I've paid over time. Now, going over here to the left, I have the option to add notes again. And then here, if I click the email button, I have two options for sending emails. The first is a bulk email using personalization tokens. So remember how earlier I said that it was important to save your influencers' names carefully? That's because I can introduce this token, influencer alias, and it will personalize this email for her. What I mean by that is, here I see this kind of code, but when she receives this email, what she'll see is "Hi, Natalia," right? So in that way I can kind of personalize each email while still working at scale and contacting lots of different influencers. Now the other option for emails is to go here to personal email, and here I can integrate either my Hotmail or my Outlook email address and send messages directly from the platform. Now I also have some nice options for sharing this profile. For example, if I want to share it with clients or colleagues, I can share a shareable URL and then paste this into an email. I can also download this profile as a PDF or export the data to an Excel file. Now this is really great because I can share all of their KPIs and stuff in one easy to use page. However, the more personal information, such as the notes that I've left and the emails that I exchange, those will be excluded from the shared views. Now going down, we have more influencer information, and this is really interesting. Remember when we added this influencer, we didn't have an email, and now suddenly it appears. This is because when you associate a profile to an influencer, and that profile has a public email address or phone number, this information will automatically be extracted by Influencity and included on their influencer page. So now you have easy access to an email and you can start emailing her and talking to her. Now moving down, we see related profiles. These are profiles that are managed by the same influencer, but we haven't saved them yet in the IRM. So I can click on this handle and open her YouTube channel in another page, check it out, see if I like it, and if I think it's worth working with, I can add the related profile straight from this page. Click yes, I want to analyze it because that means I can see the KPIs. And then in just a moment, it will appear as another tab. So this is all her YouTube data. Now moving down, I have other options such as postal addresses. For example, if I want to send her a product for her to try, I can add her postal address here and have easy access to it. And then I also have some custom fields, which are fields that I made myself to suit the needs of my data. So for example, for me, it's really important to know the start date and the end dates of my influencer contract. So I can go here and I can say, maybe she started her contract on the 1st of October and she will end it on the 31st. This way I have easy access to this information, and later when I'm searching through my database, I can look and see exactly who has a contract expiring in October, and I can consider it and see if I want to renegotiate or renew that contract. Now, say for example, I'm an e-commerce brand that sells clothing and shoe and footwear. I can create another custom field, for example, sizing, and I can create a field for clothing size to indicate that she's a small and maybe she wears a UK shoe size 6. Now that you've seen a little bit of these custom fields, I want to show you how to make one with an interesting example. So let's say, for example, you have a huge database with lots of influencers from different niches, and you want a way to really pinpoint maybe your lifestyle influencers, your gamer influencers. So what you can do is create a custom field for this data by going over here to your profile picture, clicking on Profile and Preferences, and coming down here to Properties on the left. Here you'd select the Property tab and go to Create Property. Now the object who this would apply to would be your influencers. And groups, remember I had a group for sizing and then I also had a group for the contract info. In this case, I'm going to save this new custom field to the default group, which is influencer information. And I'm going to call it content topics. Now under property type, these are the type of fields that I can use depending on the needs of my data. So for example, I could put single line text and ask all of my brand users to write in foodie, fitness, or whatever it may be. However, the complication with this is that people might have their different ways of naming things. Some people might say foodie, some people might say food influencer. And if you have a bunch of different people putting in data in different ways, well, it can get a bit chaotic. So what I would suggest doing for something like this is selecting multiple checkboxes, which lets you write your own label. So for example, I can put lifestyle as one, photography as another, maybe beauty, and gaming. And then if you look at the preview, what other brand users will see is they see this kind of drop-down list and they can choose multiple topics, and these topics will be associated with this influencer. Let's see what this looks like on Natalie's profile. So if I go back to influencers and I open her profile, right here in the section influencer information, I have a custom field called content topics. Now there's nothing there yet because I haven't added anything yet. So I'm going to add that she is into photography, and I'll save that. And now let's take a look at how we can filter influencers within the IRM. So I'll go back to my influencers main page. You can also access it from up here. And I'm going to go to all filters. From here, I'm going to go to add filter. And I'm going to go down to content topics, is any of, and I'll select photography. I'll then apply this filter, click confirm, and then the one influencer who's associated with the topic of photography now appears. So say I have a database of 500 influencers and I want to find the 50 influencers who work in photography, I can just set those filters and voila, I have them saved. And if I know I'm going to want to come back to this information, I can always save this view, go to save as new, and put photo influencers. And now this information shows up as a separate tab that I can easily go to whenever I want to find this group of influencers. Now, we've looked at how to work with influencers, and how to work with profiles is quite similar. As you can see, first off, there are a lot more tabs that come as preset values. For example, Influency will show you exactly the Instagram profiles, the TikTok profiles, YouTube profiles, etc. However, if you want to really focus your data more, what you can do is set some more filters. Let's say, for example, I wanted to focus on the most high-performing Instagram profiles. I can take this Instagram profile section. I can filter for the number of followers. For example, I want to make sure they have more than 30,000 followers. And then I can set an engagement rate, maybe a 2% engagement rate, which is pretty solid for Instagram. And it has set these filters and reduced my pool to exactly what matches these filters. Now maybe I want to come back to this, I want to have this data really handy. I'll do the same thing. I go here to save view, save as new, and I can save this as maybe Instagram top performers. I will save it, and then it appears right here for easy access in the future. Now that we've looked at Instagram influencers and profiles individually, let's see how we would work with these two information types within a list. Now, a list is basically a way of organizing both profiles and influencers within your IRM. You can create lists according to campaign, according to topic, according to performance, whatever you want. And you can also create lists for influencers and for profiles. Now, let's check out this list of profiles. Remember, profiles are social media accounts, so they have their own KPIs that go along with them. This is an overview of all the profiles in my list, and if I go here to aggregated data, I can see the aggregated data of all of these influencers. So for example, for Instagram, I have the performance of 3 influencers combined, and I can see their follower quality, their interests, and also the audience that they're impacting. The same goes for TikTok if I go to this tab, and finally for YouTube. And this gives me a good idea of if I were to do this PlayStation 5 reactivation campaign, the kind of audience that I would impact and the kind of performance that I could have before I even contract these influencers or include them in the campaign. So without spending a penny, I'm kind of getting some estimation into how they would perform together. Now finally, this is really interesting, audience overlap. This is basically the percentage of an influencer's audience that is unique to this profile or that overlaps. So let's consider this Mr. Beast. He has 85% unique followers. That means 85% of his followers only follow this profile. They don't follow any of the others. Whereas 14% of these followers follow another profile. Now, whether you want a high percentage of unique followers or a high percentage of overlap depends on the kind of campaign that you want to carry out. For example, if you really want high reach, you want to reach the maximum amount of people possible, you would want a lot of unique followers. That means that each profile is impacting a different group of people to have a huge reach. Now, on the other hand, if your focus is more brand awareness, familiarity, you might want more overlap because this way you are impacting the same people but with different sponsored posts. So they might see your product presented by one influencer, then a week later they'll see a product presented by another, and it's a way to kind of breed that familiarity and eventually work them down the purchase funnel. Now that we've seen lists of profiles, let's see lists of influencers. So this is a list that I created of influencers that I'm interested in involving in my fall campaign. Now, as influencers don't have KPIs, this works more as like a contact list or a way or like an email list. So I can come right here to email, select bulk email, and again, I can use those handy personalization tokens in order to communicate to everyone, but personalizing my message a little bit. So if I put hi influencer alias, then they would all get a message, but it would all be tailored to them. And then maybe I can include a newsletter, some updates, communications that I want to share with them. And it allows me to contact all of them personally without writing 5 different emails. Now, lastly, we have recruitment. What does that mean? Normally, when you look for influencers, it's kind of an outbound process. You're searching for them on platforms and stuff like that. However, influencer recruitment means that the influencers come to you. Because after all, maybe your best promoters could be your biggest fans, right? Because they know your brand, they know the pain points that you solve. So creating a recruitment page is a great way to get those influencers to apply and get them straight into your IRM database. How does it work? You create a landing page, which is a page created with a sole purpose. In this case, it would be like a mini application that influencers would fill out to work with you. Once this page is created, you would share it however you want. These influencers would go to it, register, and then they would be included in your IRM. All right, so let's create our landing page. I would go here and click Create Landing Page, which will open a pop-up window where I can fill in the information about my page. For example, I can name it maybe Autumn Campaign. I can select the language if I want it to be in English, Spanish, etc. And then I would add a default URL, for example, my brand. And then I would select the social networks where I would want influencers to represent me. Now, Instagram is mandatory, but I can also choose to do a multi-channel campaign, maybe with TikTok and with YouTube. Now down here, I can just paste my company's existing privacy policy, and I can either redirect influencers to a thank you page, or I can put a quick thank you message that'll pop up once they submit the form. And now I'll click Save. And our landing page is live. Let's take a look at it by going to Preview. Now the first thing you might notice is the branding. Here we have Influencity branding. However, if your own brand uploads their logo to Influencity, then your branding will appear here, and that way it's coherent with the rest of your web pages and your social media, etc. Now, influencers who come to this page will be asked to fill in their name, email, and they'll be asked to leave their social media handles. Again, Instagram is mandatory, and then they can also leave their TikTok channel and YouTube channel if they want to represent you on those social media accounts. Then they would just have to accept your privacy policy and hit Save and Continue. Then an influencer would be directed to this quick verification, which is just to make sure that their Instagram account is in fact real, and then they would be added to your IRM directly. Now, how do you spread the word about these handy landing pages? What some companies do is they will include in their email signature, sign up for an influencer program, and direct people to the landing page. If you really want to gather a big pool, another thing you can do is you use your own branded social media and share information in, for example, an Instagram post. There you would outline, for example, the responsibilities, what you would want influencers to do, the time commitment, the benefits, what they would get out of it, either the monetary compensation or opportunities for growth. Because remember, influencer relationship management is a mutually beneficial partnership. So it's good for both your brand and your influencers. Okay, so now my landing page has been active for about a week, and during that time I've been promoting it heavily to make sure that I've really reached far and wide and I have a big healthy applicant pool to search from. So all the influencers who have applied to work with me through the landing page have now been saved automatically to the IRM tool. And if you'll remember, the IRM has a handy feature called Views, which basically allows you to set filters and then save these filters in a tab so that you can return to them at any time. So what I've gone ahead and done is create a separate tab for landing page and added a filter, meaning that all the influencers who have come to me through the landing page will be saved directly under this tab. So by going here, I can see my entire applicant pool, and the next step would be to start checking out these influencers and their profiles to see if they match my aesthetic and the performance that I'm looking for. So for example, if I were to click here, I would see that this influencer has 2 profiles that they signed up to promote my brand with. However, when influencers initially come to your IRM, the profiles will not be analyzed. They will be associated, so you will see them as separate tabs here, but you would have to pay the cost of 1 monthly analysis in order to unlock all of these nice statistics, such as profile evolution, the profiles they interact with, and the audience stats. So what I would suggest doing first is clicking up here on their handle, which would actually open their Instagram account in a separate window, and that way you can get a feel for the aesthetic, the kind of stuff that they post, the same thing for YouTube, and then if you like it, then you can decide to analyze the profile and unlock this data. And then combining your opinion on their aesthetic and the KPIs, you can make a decision as to whether you want to pursue this relationship with this influencer. If you do, then the next step would be to consider adding them to lists. You can add profiles to lists to see how the profiles would perform with other profiles, and you can also add influencers to lists to start sending them bulk emails and start that relationship with this talent. And that's it. Thank you for joining us on this quick tour of the Influencity IRM. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave us a comment in the comments below, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you.